God, please, no! 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 No!
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the channel. Today, I'll be doing some work on the Exploder. This is my 2000 Ford Explorer XLT with the 5.0 V8. You can see here. It's also all-wheel drive. And if you heard the footage at the beginning of this video, it didn't sound quite right. Yes, you heard a lot of belt squealing coming from the engine bay, of course, where the belt's located. It is a Serpentine belt, which just means it's a single belt. It's not a multi-belt system. And if you look closely, you might be able to see here, my setup is a little bit unconventional, as I do have an electric water pump right here, which has almost like a free spinning, kind of acts as a spacer to maintain relatively the right size belt length, but it is a little bit different than a stock. Now, cool thing about most cars here, it gives you a belt routing pattern here. You want to make sure you pay attention to this, or if you really need to, take a photo of your layout, because we will be pulling this belt out and we're getting everything replaced. I'm going to be replacing the belt, this top pulley here. We're going to replace the tensioner, which is down there, and then there's a ribbed belt pulley bottom left. We're replacing that as well. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of wear here. I replaced all the same pulleys in the belt, I want to say maybe 5 years ago or so, and cars hasn't really been driven that much. It's kind of my long-term project car, but I don't know, maybe a year ago it started squealing again, and I figured I'll just go ahead and knock all this stuff out. Now I do have the AC down here. That pulley, you can notice it's unplugged. I have to do some AC work before I plug that back in and charge everything up. That'll probably be a later video. So we'll go ahead and spin around back here where I have everything kind of staged out of what I plan on working on here. Here is the belt. I'm hoping this actually fits because, like I said, it is unconventional length. My last belt felt maybe it was a little bit too long by just a fraction of an inch, so I ordered this one just based on the length. And I did get the RPM series. It was supposed to be a little bit more performance oriented and a little bit more durable, and it's a little bit shorter. Have the tensioner pulley here, AC Delco. Maybe see the part number there. Here is the smooth pulley, another AC Delco part, and then I have the ribbed one, another AC Delco. I believe what's on it right now is gates, but yeah, everything started squealing relatively soon after the install. Well, a few years, but maybe only 1,000 miles. And yeah, don't really want to have it squealing again. So what we're gonna need is a ratchet here with a socket, 9/16. And what we're gonna have to do, you can see down there where the tensioner is, we're going to have to put the 9/16 socket on the bolt coming out of the tensioner. You want it to have to be locked so I can actually tighten, and you're not going to really be tightening the bolt. We're going to be rotating the tensioner pulley to the right, which will help loosen up the tension of this belt here on the pulleys. So right now, if you feel it, I mean, it's super tight. It's not going to come off. And I mean, technically, since I'm getting rid of this belt, I could cut it off if I wanted to, but if I loosen that up, turn it to the right, this will give me enough slack so I can just hopefully lift this over the lip and then get the belt up and out of here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the belt removed. We'll take a look at it, see if it's degraded or anything like that. I don't think it will be. And then we'll go ahead and work on removing these pulleys. Okay, I was able to move the tensioner over, and that has given me enough slack to go ahead and get this belt off of the pulleys. There are a bunch of them, so make sure you get all of them removed. And I do have a bunch of extra wiring and stuff here to make it a little bit more complicated, but still not bad. And overall, the belt doesn't look horrible. I mean, it doesn't look great, but it's definitely not like on his deathbed, so shouldn't be an issue with the pulley. A good handy tool to have, either paper or on disc form, is of course the shop manual here. I have the 2000 Explorer manual, volume 1, and section 30305 has the breakdown of the Serpentine belt system. And you can see here it has a nice layout of all of the troubleshooting and all that fun stuff. Now, I showed you on the sticker, but it also has the diagram of the pulley setup, what each pulley is labeled as. So of course we're gonna have the belt idler pulley, which is the bigger one here. Oh, sorry. You got the two upper and the lower idler pulleys, and then you have the tensioner as indicated on the diagram. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the top one, which is the smooth upper idler pulley, and that is indicated, belt idler pulley, yep, this one right here, the upper one. And this is great because it gives us our torque values. When I install the new one, this says 35 foot-pound, and I have my torque wrench over here. And as always, make sure it's in the container on a relatively semi-level surface, and you set the you let it calibrate, and then you set your torque settings that you want. And then we're going to need is a 5/8 socket to remove it. Oop, almost threw the camera out of my hand, but broke loose. And here we have the upper idler pulley removed. There we go. Just make sure you do a quick comparison and verify they are the same size. There we go. Now you're going to want to transfer over the bolt washer setup you have here, as you can see. So you're gonna have to then spin this off, pull this out, push it through, and then spin this one back on so it's captured back on here. So I have the screw placed back through here. There is a plastic little piece that goes, make sure that's tight against the washer on here, and so you will actually see poorly, but this actually will freely spin on that screw like that. So that can tell you, make sure that's not bound up or you have any issues with that. So you should be able to spin it. Now, there was no issues doing that with this one. So most likely this pulley's perfectly fine, but I like to replace these things in a set. So you're gonna go ahead and you wanna spin on this other washer. Make sure it's on there nice and tight. Everything still works. And we're gonna go ahead and get this installed back in the car. You can see it's lightly tightened down. I had the torque wrench ready to go, set to 35 pounds. Digital torque wrench, I'm not a huge fan of these. Maybe I just suck at them, but you know, it is what it is. There we go, that should be good. Make sure this free spins, and it does, so we should be good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and get the bottom pulley removed. See the best avenue for that. You can see it down there in the bottom corner. I believe it's a 1/2 inch as well. Gonna go ahead and, same way as this one, just remove the bolt, pull the pulley off, and then we'll get it on the workbench. All right, this bottom one went from the bottom, the 1932. Sometimes you gotta hit it from the underside. All right, I was able to get this bottom pulley out, and like I showed you earlier, I went from underneath the car. It was easier to access. I didn't have to pull the intake, you know, air filter or anything out of the way, and you can see it's nice and messy. But this one spins pretty freely, but I mean, So it's no obvious damage to it, but kind of like the other one, it's a bolt that has this little plastic piece that rides inside of the bearing here. And so of course we have the new one, and you're just going to want to clean up the bolt a little bit and then just reinstall it, and then we'll crawl back underneath the car and put this one back in place. Now if you are torquing it, I'm not sure if I'll be able to get my torque wrench on it, and so I'm just going to tighten it up to a relatively nice setting here. But we do have the lower idler pulley. If you want the torque setting, it shows as 16 to 21 foot-pounds. So tight, but yeah, don't hawk it. Either use your torque wrench or just kind of eyeball it or go by feel. Just don't over torque it. I have the lower idler pulley in place. You can see here, went on pretty smoothly, but as I mentioned earlier, I couldn't really get my torque wrench on there because of these coolant lines or whatever these are. So I just gave it a good heave ho, and it feels pretty tight. It's still kind of hard to maneuver this, but it freely spins. Want to make sure it doesn't bind up or anything crazy. So I think we're good to go on that. So next up will be the tensioner pulley. So we'll go ahead and hop up. And the tensioner pulley we have down there. And quick preview of that with the new replacement. This one's gonna be a little bit different. It has 2 bolts right here and here that we're gonna have to remove. We're not gonna mess with the center bolt here because this tensioner is already attached. So we're gonna have to remove these 2 bolts on the one that's on the car right now. Then we're gonna move this one over, get it installed, and then we can get the belt back on. Last pulley to go in will be this tensioner here. And I believe it sits kind of like this. If you look down there, may be able to see what I'm referring to off to the side there. And really to get good access, because I do have all this extra wiring to run my electric fans and my electric water pump, is I'm gonna remove this intake tube here, and pretty easy. I'm just gonna go ahead and loosen up the clamp here, unplug the mass airflow sensor and the other sensor here, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and lift this out, and that'll give me a little bit more access. I can go through underneath the radiator hose here, and hopefully I can get a tool on to the 2 bolts we have down there. I have the tensioner removed. It sits on the car, I can say kind of like that. So this one's kind of hard to find. There's actually a bolt right next to it that initially just, was reaching down there and started working. That was I believe a 9/16 bolt. That is not the correct bolt, so don't remove that one. Turns out that bolt's like that long. Yeah, don't ask me how I found that out. But these bolts are actually 10 millimeter. And the bottom one, I accessed it from below the car. I didn't have to put it on a jack or anything like that. I was able to just kind of slide under there, get my arm up there. I do have some of my undershield plastic bits seal off of my car, which may have made that easier. If you have those, you might need to pull those off if you can't get to the bottom bolt, another way. And pretty much the same deal when I removed the lower idler pulley. I went through the bottom. It was easier to access. And then the top bolt, I went through the top where my intake hose tube is. If you have the stock intake set up, you might need to remove that as well. I think it's even more bulky. It's been so long, I don't remember what it looks like. And then of course the top one. And yeah, this one, just remember this one's a little bit left of the 9/16 bolt. This is a 10 millimeter. Comes out pretty good. And then, I was looking over the pulleys. They all seem in pretty good shape. The upper pulley seemed fine. And really the only thing I noticed, this is the lower idler pulley, did have some kind of, a little bit of grease blowout around the bearing. So maybe, this thing was causing some of my squealing. Maybe it lost some of this grease and it was making that noise, possibly. But you know, other than that, these all seem like they're in relatively good shape. Here is my replacement pulley for the tensioner here. And like I said, I can't remember what the old brand was. I thought it was Gates everything, but maybe I replaced the Gates stuff at some point. I know I've replaced these a few times, but here is the new one. Looks nice, you know, as nice as a tensioner can be. And we're gonna go ahead and get that installed. And yeah, we'll grab these tools up and I'll show you real quick what we're working with. All right, so you see here, intake's out of the way. And, you know, kind of seeing there maybe, right in this general area where you see my hand is where the tensioner goes. And here is the bolt that sits next to it. So don't remove this one, remove the 10mm for the tensioner. I went and passed the tensioner through the gap right here and then got it into place that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this one in and situated. Make sure you do have this orientated correctly. The longer arm is on the bottom and the nub is on the top. Get that locked into place and we'll start tightening it up. Here is the actual diagram. Maybe give you a quick visual before I get that thing reinstalled. And here is the belt tensioner. Of course, if you have the 5.0, looks like we're doing 18 foot-pounds. And here is the bolt that I may or may not have removed. Of course, I have reinstalled it since then. So don't remove that one. It's just to the left of it, kind of hidden. You have to feel around for it. And then here is the other bolt down here. This actually looks a little bit different just with the angle, but so that's the other bolt. Make sure you remove both of these and reinstall both of these. As mentioned before, we want to torque it to 18 pound-foot. Torque wrench, make sure it's in the case if you're using the same kind. You turn it on, it does this little calibration dance, and you want to drop it down. There we go, 18. And we'll head back out to the car. And get her torqued down. You kind of see up where the bottom bolt is. I can't see the screen, but should be good to go. Here, once again, is the belt routing for the 5.0, and I am running a custom size belt because of my setup. I will link in the description what I'm going to be running and what the stock belt would be. So just make sure when you route it, normally I loop it around the bottom ones here, kind of feed it up and through, and then just have it sit loose right around here. And I'll get the ratchet, put it into the pulley here, apply some tension and loosen up this, and then I'll try to swing it over the top. Gonna need both of my hands and maybe a third to get this situated, but so yeah, I'm just gonna drop this in there, get it kind of pre-fit. We'll take a look and then I'll see if I can get this bad boy working, and hopefully this belt does fit. So I have the belt pre-staged. See here, it goes over the alternator and it goes over your AC, goes over, I believe that's your power steering, and pretty much the flat side of your belt is going to be against the flat, smooth pulleys, and the rib portion of the belt will be on the ribbed pulleys. So it makes pretty good sense. I always like to start at the bottom left and that goes on the outside of both the bottom left and your crank pulley, and then those squeeze together and then come outward over the water pump here, and it goes around here. And then so you have not this pulley connected yet, and of course can't see that, not enough to get underneath there. So what we're going to do is get the ratchet, apply it to the pulley tensioner. We're going to pull it to the right, and that should then give me some more slack, and I'll be able to dive this underneath the pulley here, and then we can make sure everything's lined up nice and good. I'm going to go ahead and then rehook up the intake. We'll start it up and see if the squeal is gone or not. I was able to get this belt on, and you can see here's the tensioner and my 9/16 socket on my ratchet. And if you watch, it's kind of awkward here, but it moves when you turn it clockwise, and that will move that pulley enough to give you a little bit of slack. And I was able to dive in underneath the pulley here, the upper idler, and the belts all look pretty good. Everything looks pretty centered, and no slack on the belt. So yeah, overall seems good. I'm gonna go ahead and get this intake back on, and then we'll give it a start up and see if we're good. There we have it. Looks like the belt squeal is gone, and yeah, it didn't take that long and relatively inexpensive. So as you see here, here's the remnant of everything I have had replaced, including the old belt here, which I'm gonna throw in the trash. And yeah, these are good to go, at least for now. Hopefully I don't have to hear the squeal on my startup anymore. I got a ton more projects coming for the exploder. You can see here a little bit right there, a little bit over here, and I hope to be knocking these out, and a bunch of other stuff with the Camaro, the Mustang, the Beast, NV 3500, just tons of different things, tech projects. So thanks for everybody who subscribed, and if you haven't subscribed, feel free to. It definitely helped me out. Give me a like, comment, let me know what else you'd like to see, and we're gonna keep on trucking through this stuff and knocking out as many things as I can in the little bit of free time that I have each day. So have a good one. Peace.